maybe our listeners would be interested in hearing what your thoughts are on what kinds of jobs will be wholly automated with AI in the coming decades, and what kinds of workers will be spared.
Well, AI is really good at tasks, but not entire jobs. So, when we have a job that consists of only one task, I think that's the most at risk. So,
Right.
you know, um, I've looked at this for radiology, and radiologists. A lot of people think all they do is read images, but they actually do a variety of other things. And some people have articulated, people who know more about radiology than I do have said, that's one of 13 things that a radiologist might do in a day. So, yeah, if that one gets taken over, it will mean a change in the job, but it won't mean that it goes away. We've seen it in law with this idea of e-discovery, this idea of kind of reading through massive amounts of documents to see, did somebody say anything inappropriate in an email or in something relevant to a case in an email. And for a while, regular lawyers did that, and then it went to lower paid contract document review lawyers, and now it's done by machines. But lawyers are still, around in large numbers, maybe numbers that are too large for the health of our society. And for the most part, it just they just find other things to specialize in and let the machine do that particular task. So it has to be, I think, if a machine is going to take over an entire job, it has to be a pretty structured activity that doesn't require much variation. People used to say truck drivers were going to be the first thing that got taken over, but I'm not sure we still believe that. A lot of the autonomous truck companies have gone out of business now, and who knows when that will be the case.
With these persistent rumors over the past decade of truck drivers being automated in the very near future, there's this enormous shortage of truck drivers in the United States, certainly, because people thought, oh, why would I go into that career? And so now it's turned out to be something that's quite a lucrative thing to get into, because they've had to pay so much to convince people to come into it.
Yeah, and people have said the same thing about radiology, that radiology used to be a really sought after job by medical students, and some were scared away. We have a big shortage of radiologists, whatever the reason, and it's not going away anytime soon. And in fact, with all of this stuff, we as humans, we don't really want human jobs to go away. But on the other hand, we're spending a lot of money on AI and related technologies. And if it's not going to, give us some productivity gains, we're not getting a very good return on our investment at all. So we need to kind of think about both perspectives. And I do think that when we can automate a structured task, we ought to try to do it, but we ought to give people some warning and help them try to figure out some other things that they might do within our organizations.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about getting value, getting a great return on investment from AI. So I gather from what we've just been talking about that if you're a leader in an organization or a data scientist in an organization and you're looking for opportunities for something to automate, it sounds clear that something that has a lot of repetition, some task that's highly repetitive, is ideal for automating. What kind of task is ideal for augmenting?
I think anything involving innovation and adaptation and so on. These smart machines are very capable, but they're really only good at doing things that have been done a lot before. That's where we get the data to train them. And so if the environment is changing or has changed and you need to have an entirely new approach, your humans are going to help a lot in that regard. And, I think we humans, generally, most of us find that more interesting work anyway. It's just we can't fall into the trap of doing this job the same way over and over again, or we're likely to be replaced by a machine.
Yeah, and that's that kind of idea of being innovative. So if you're in a role that requires some innovation and you're stuck on what to do next, well, now you can open up your ChatGPT browser and augment with ideas. You can say,
There
you
you
can
go.
describe your situation. Hey, ChatGPT, for the last 2 quarters, revenue has been stagnant in my organization. Give me a few ideas of things I could be doing. And then you can narrow down. You can say, okay, that first idea is a pretty good one. Let's make that more specific to this particular industry that I'm in or whatever. And it's as you say, it's not going to be able to come up with the complete answer. It's not going to be able to tie everything together, but it can we can augment with this idea generation.
I agree, and I think that we um, we should all lose our jobs if we don't start using tools like ChatGPT to sort of, figure out, has somebody already thought of something that we might not have considered? Um, in a related vein, I haven't seen too much of it yet. I recently wrote an article in Harvard Business Review. It was right before ChatGPT came out, which is a little unfortunate, but I talked a lot about GPT-3 and so on. And one company I interviewed, Morgan Stanley, is trying to use these generative tools to kind of manage their internal knowledge, not just the knowledge in the world at large that happened to be on the internet or whatever used to train the model, but their own internal knowledge. And through sort of fine tuning of the model, they could find, what is the best recommendation for an investment in this particular situation, say. And I think organizations will be delinquent if they don't develop that kind of capability. It's sort of a new approach to knowledge management, which was one of my previous enthusiasms years ago.
Yeah, we had a cool guest 2 years ago now. In episode number 455, we had Horus Wu, who's the CEO of a legal AI startup called Cynthia, who was doing the kind of thing that you're describing. So, you were already talking earlier in this episode about um, legal firms being able to search over documents. And so, what Horace's company Cynthia allows you to do is it allows you to generate clauses based on your internal database of existing clauses. So these big law firms have millions and millions and millions of documents. And so you can be ingesting those. And then you can say, he has an add on for Microsoft Word so that you can highlight a clause and say, I'm looking for something like this, but this isn't exactly right. And then it'll search over, so it'll convert that language into a vector, and then it'll look for similar vectors in the existing company database and return you some suggestions of
Hmm.
ways you could be adapting the clause.
I must say you have an encyclopedic knowledge of your previous podcasts. So.
Well, I have a spreadsheet. So I furiously, sometimes when I have ideas of, how can I tie this to a previous episode, then I'm flipping over to my spreadsheet of past guests and searching their name quickly to be able to cite. I haven't memorized all the old episode numbers.
Well, before long, I think you'll have to, if you haven't done this already, you'll have to turn all your previous episodes into text and have that as a training database for ChatGPT or whatever. And then you don't need guests. You can just say, generate me something on this combination of topics.
Well, as it happens, Tom, we've already done all of the foundational human labor required to facilitate that AI capability because every episode, certainly since I've been host of the show for over 2 years, we have a transcript that has been meticulously cleaned by our podcast manager, Ivana. And so every episode, if people go to superdatascience.com/podcast and they go to whatever episode they like, they can actually just read the entire episode instead of listening to it or viewing it.
Using otter.ai or something like that, or
We use
transcribe it.
we use augmented humans. So we use
Okay.
instead of a standalone service like Otter, instead of we've decided to augment instead of automate. So we use a service that has humans that try to they must surely it'd be insane if they aren't as the first pass using a tool like Otter. And then they
Yeah,
get it,
yeah.
they clean it up, they pass that to us, and then our podcast manager Ivana reads through the entire thing and fixes all of the, the kinds of the proper nouns and things that the transcript creator doesn't know. So
Yeah, and by the way, I found out the same approach is being used in translation for important business documents and localization of marketing content and so on. It's not, something like Google Translate wouldn't be able to handle it at all. It's computer aided translation that kind of suggests something, and then the human can say, nah, don't like that, got to change that, move along. It greatly improves their productivity, of course.